guys, it's Maddie, and today I'll be doing my January wrap-up. So let's just get right into the stats. So I read 9 books in January, which is great. My goal was 10 books, but I was close. 9 is still good. I read 3,530 pages. I read 6 contemporary romances, my most read genre of this month, 1 contemporary manga, 1 paranormal, and 1 fantasy. 6 of the books I physically owned. 1 of them was a physical library book, and 2 of them were audiobooks, which is weird because I normally don't read a lot of audiobooks, but I did this month. Or I mean listen to. You listen to audiobooks, to be more precise. All the books I read this month were by female authors. The oldest book I read this month was written in 2008. I read 2 books that were published in 2013. 1 of them was published in 2015. 2 were published in 2016. And 1 was published in 2017. And 1 was published in 2018. 3 of the books I read this month were rereads. I read 6 standalone books this month, and 3 of them were a part of the series. Usually for the past few months I've been reading more books that are part of a series, but this month I read a lot of standalones, so that's quite different. All the books I read this month were YA books. I had 5 5-stars, 2 4-stars, 1 3-star, and 1 1-star. I DNF'd 1 book this month, but it's a DNF that I am going to continue on reading in February. I just didn't have time to finish it in January. I participated in 2 readathons. The first one was the biannual bibliothon, and I read 1 book for that. The other one was the 24 and 48 readathon, where you're supposed to read for 24 hours in the span of 48 hours. I didn't, how do I put this, I finished books, but all the books I read for that readathon I was currently reading, so it's like I don't know how to count that. Like, I read books, but I picked up books I was in the middle of. So instead I'm going to tell you guys how many hours I did end up reading for that readathon. Didn't make it to 24, but I read for 12 hours in 1 weekend, which was like a huge accomplishment for me. Even though I didn't make it to 24 hours, I'm like super happy about that. One thing I forgot, I can't believe I forgot to do this. I forgot to mention how many books I read out of my original TBR. Stupid me. So I'll place the number right here. I don't know what it is. Hopefully it's good. So those were the stats for this month. Let's just get into the books. And I will be showing these books in order from my least favorite book of the month to my most favorite book, as always. First though, I'm going to start off with a book that I am currently reading. I didn't get to finish, and that is I'll Give You the Sun by Jenny Nelson. I'm on page 174, right? Yep. 174. And I'm liking this, I guess. It's like, it's okay right now, but I'm still kind of interested to keep on reading it, so I don't want to, like, permanently DNF it. I'm still interested in continuing on and hopefully it gets better, because right now I'm just kind of, like, meh about it, but this is a book that everyone seems to love, so I'm like, I hope I actually end up loving it. We'll just see how it goes. Okay, now all these books I have completed, so let's just get into my least favorite book of the month. Another book that everyone seems to love, but I hated this book. I hate it with a passion. That is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I'm missing the dust jacket, so I'll insert a picture of the cover. Yeah. I hate talking about this book. I did a whole book review on it that I'll link on the screen in case you want to know my in-depth thoughts on it. I just hated this book. Everyone loves this book. This book is so popular, but I hated it, which is weird because it's a contemporary book, and I'm like a contemporary book person, but I hated it. I hated Kath, the main character. She was so immature. She was bratty. She complained about everything. She was so annoying. Did not care for the fan fiction that was in it, which was, this book is about this girl, I didn't even explain, about this girl who is going into college, and she's taking like a fiction writing course, and she is a fan fiction writer for this series called Simon Snow, which she's a huge fan of, supposedly. I barely call her a fangirl. She's not a fangirl. And that's basically it. It's like, she finds a guy, she falls in love, all of that. I hated this character. I did not care for the fanfiction. Like, you get snippets of her fanfiction throughout this book, and I just found it boring. I found the whole middle part of this book completely boring. I did not care for any of the characters. I hated it. I just hated everything about it, which just pains me because a lot of people love this book. It was annoying, and I feel like the fan fiction is a Harry Potter ripoff, which is so wrong. Not for me. Did not like it, and I'm really sad that I didn't like it because so many people love it, but I hated it, so I'm gonna leave it at that. I hate talking about it. That's how much I hate it. So we're gonna move on. Okay, next, another Rainbow Rowell book, and that is Eleanor and Park. This one was just okay. This one takes place in the 80s, which I love this setting because I love the 80s. That's my favorite decade. A decade I wish I would have been alive for. So I really enjoyed that, and it's about these two kids who are in high school. They are sophomores, and they meet on their bus, and they get to know each other. And she's new to the school. She sits with Park, who is this guy, on the bus every day. They get to know each other, and they have this whole little love story. This one, I can say, is better than Fangirl, thank God. But it was still just this okay book. I found the romance to just be kind of like, alright. Like, it was cute, but at times it just felt kind of insta-lovey, and I felt like it was kind of toxic at times because Park seemed to put all his focus on Eleanor. Like, he would neglect being with friends and family because he just wanted to be with Eleanor all the time, and I'd be like, that's not really a healthy relationship. Like, you shouldn't neglect your friends and family just for this girl who you met, like, a few months ago. But I did like the overall dynamic of the romance. I thought it was cheesy, but in like a cute way. However, I really did not care for Eleanor. I thought she could be very rude at times. She was really withdrawn, and I get why, because she comes from such a bad family background and she's like always depressed and doesn't want to open up to people. I get that, but she was just rude sometimes and a little racist, especially towards Park. There was one quote in here where she talks about his squinty eyes, and I'd be like, dude, that is racist, because Park is Asian. So I was like, that was so totally unnecessary to put in there, and it made me a little uncomfortable, so did not like that, and really, overall, just didn't really care for her character. So yeah, this book was just okay. I give it a 3 out of 5 stars. And I'm at this point starting to think that Rainbow Rowell's books just aren't for me. So far I've read 3 of her books. Fangirl, I just mentioned, I gave 1 star. I hated it. This book was 3 stars. I read Landline like 2 years ago, and I also gave that 3 stars. So I'm not sure if I want to pick up any more of her books. I still have Attachments, and I'm like debating over it because like Attachments sounds so interesting. But I just don't think I like her writing style or her books, so I don't know. I might still read Attachments. It's up for debate, but this one was just okay, and it's a 3 stars. Okay, now we're going to start getting a little bit more positive. Those 2 books were just, I hated one. One of them was okay, but now we're going to get into books that I really liked. So the rest of these are 4 stars and 5 stars. So the next book I have to share is The Wrath and the Dawn by Renee Ahdieh. This is a book I had been dying to read for like 2 years, and I just hadn't picked it up until it showed up in my haul reaction, so I had to read it, and I liked it. And it is a 1001 Nights retelling, and it's about this boy who is a king, and he kills his bride at every dawn, and no one knows why. And he ends up killing this girl's best friend, and to get revenge, she marries this king, and is planning to kill him to get revenge for him killing her best friend. But throughout this book, she's figuring out that the king isn't all as who he appears to be. Like I said, I had been intrigued by this book for years, and I'd been wanting to pick it up. I finally got the chance to. I really liked it. I thought it was very suspenseful. There were a lot of parts of this book where I was like, oh my gosh, what is going to happen next? I liked the characters. I liked Shazi, though she could have been really bratty at times. I still liked her because she was very strong, and I really love those strong female characters. We need more of those, and she was definitely a good example of that. But I did feel at some points the plot did drag, which kind of left me bored at some point. And I wasn't totally keen on this romance. Like, I liked it, but it felt a little underdeveloped at times, and one thing that was really frustrating about this is that Shahrazad, or Shazi, I still don't know how to pronounce her name, I just call her Shazi, she would go from wanting to kill the king to being like, oh, but he's good, and he's like so good looking, and she'd be like swooning over him, and then the next page she'd want to kill him again. And then she doesn't want to kill him. I'm like, girl, make up your mind. How do you feel about this guy? She went back and forth so much and I was so frustrated. I'm like, oh my gosh. Do you love him or do you hate him? I want to know. We definitely get the answer at the end of this book, but like throughout this whole book, she's going back and forth on her feelings for him, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so frustrating. Just make up your mind. I like this. Not the best book ever, but I am a little intrigued to read the next book. I've been contemplating, like, do I really want to continue on with the series? But I'm like, I'm interested enough to want to continue on, so I have the second book checked out from the library, and I'm going to get to it as soon as I can. But yeah, this one was good, and I gave it 4 stars. I bit the book. Oh my gosh, the Wrath of the Dawn ruined it. No, I hate when this happens to my paperbacks. So yeah, you already saw the book. That is The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer. Another book I've been really wanting to get to, and I finally got to it. This was in my try chapter tag that I meant to get to in December. I was supposed to read this in December. I forgot to read it in December, so I ended up reading it in January, and I really enjoyed it. This is a book, how do I explain this? It is about a girl named Mara who is going through some PTSD after her friends die in this building that falls on them, and she was there, but she survived. She's dealing with like her feelings after that. She moves to this new town to get away from her past that involves that. She meets this boy named Noah who seems to just get her, and they start off this friendship. I guess they get to know each other more. It develops into like a romance thing, and this is all about Mara dealing with her and her feelings after this tragedy happens. And the creepiest thing about this book is that Mara hallucinates a lot. She sees her dead friends. And this is a book where you do not know what is real and what is not. Because Mara is always having these hallucinations. And that is the most frustrating thing about this book. I like the play on what is actually real and what's not. Like, that can get very entertaining. But at some points, like, we'd go through a whole chapter, and then Mara would be like, was that real? Did I really experience that? I'm like, was it real? We went through that whole chapter and it was not real. Like, really? Like, I'm so confused right now, but like in a good way. So this book was just really fun to read. It was definitely creepy. It was very eerie, but I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to read the rest of the books in this series because I'm so intrigued on what's going to happen next. And I gave this 4 stars. I liked it. Not the best thing ever. Definitely left me kind of frustrated sometimes, but I definitely did like it. Okay, next getting into the 5-star reads. So the first 5-star read I have to share is Meet Cute, and this is an anthology that came out in January this month, and I absolutely love this. This is the first anthology I have ever read, and I'm glad to say that I am looking forward to reading a lot more anthologies from now on. This is an anthology all about cute instances where people first meet. It is definitely lives up to its name. It is so adorable and cute. I loved it so much. So this does include a bunch of short stories by a lot of authors. I haven't read any of these authors' works before except for Jennifer L. Armentrout. She also edited this book. Wait, I take that back. I've read Nicola Yoon before. She's in this book. So I just realized that. I've read 2 authors that are part of this anthology, not 1. That just came to light. So 2. I've read Jennifer L. Armentrout and Nicola Yoon. But the rest I have never read from before, so I got to read from them for the first time, and I've discovered a lot of authors where I actually want to read their other books from this book, and I think that's such a cool thing about anthologies. You get to discover new authors that you've either never heard of before or you've never read from before, and it introduces you to their books, and now you really want to pick them up. I definitely got that with this book. So, some of my favorite stories in this was definitely, I think the War for the Cutest story is, I think it's called The Unlikely Likelihood of Falling in Love. And it's about this girl who is taking the train ride to school every day. And she sees this boy on the other train while she's crossing. And she comes up with an idea that she is going to track how many times she sees him while taking the train for her statistics class. And she's also playing with the idea of love at first sight. And it is just the cutest story. One of the cutest stories I've ever read. I loved it so much. I forget who it is by. Let me just look that up really quick because I actually do not remember. It's in the front. It is by Jocelyn Davies. I have never read anything by her before. I've actually never heard of her before. So I'm definitely going to have to check her out because I loved her story so much. I also loved Jennifer L. Armentrout's, of course, because she's like my favorite author ever. Hers was The Dictionary of You and Me, which was so cute. I also love 259 Million Miles. It's about these two characters who are in a simulation thing for a test of how they can deal with being in close quarters before they take off to Mars. And the two characters fall in love in that situation. It's so cute. Just so many great stories. I gave most of them 5 stars. I had, I think like 2 4-stars, 1 3-star. And one of them I did give a 1 star because I really didn't like it. It was really bad. To me personally, for reasons, I just didn't like it. And I gave a few 2 stars, but like for the most part, I loved all the stories in this. And I would highly recommend this if you're into cute contemporary reads and anthologies. It was amazing. Next, I have a reread, and that is P.S. I Like You by Casey West. The last time I read this was in 2016, so I've been dying to read it again, and I listened to this on audiobook. So I have explained this before because this is like one of my favorite books of all time. It is about this girl named Lily who is bored in chemistry class one day, so she decides she's going to write song lyrics on her desk. And then when she gets to class the next day, she sees that the lyrics have been finished for her on her desk and that that person has left a note for her. So this starts a chain of events where these two characters are writing letters back and forth between their classes, and they don't know who each other are. And Lily falls in love with this person through these letters. And it is so adorable. I have to say this is probably the cutest book I've ever read. It is so cute. Definitely makes me want to read more of Casey West. I've read this book twice, but I have not read anything else by her, which is like a problem, and I really want to. But I had a kick out of rereading this again, and I just did a review of it, so I'll have that uploaded really soon in case you want to know my in-depth thoughts on it. But I would highly recommend it. It is adorable. Next, I decided to continue with my reread of Ouran High School Host Club, and I got to Volume 12. I have been rereading this series. Like, I read this series for the first time years ago, like 5 years ago, and this is my third time rereading it, I think. Yeah, 3. I read it 3 times now. That is a lot. And I'm still loving it. This is one of my favorite manga series ever. I really enjoyed this volume. This is the first volume to make me cry. The thing I love about this series is that at one page you'll be laughing so much, and then the next you'll be crying. Like, this manga series just really plays with your emotions, and the end of this just really made me cry. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I just feel for these characters so much and their backstories, and just gets me so emotional. So I really enjoyed this one. Definitely a 5 out of 5 stars. Definitely looking forward to keep on reading the rest of the volumes. Okay, these next 2 books are kind of in a tie with each other. They were both like my absolute favorite reads of this month, and like I'm not even kidding, my favorite books of all time. One of them was a reread, but this one I read for the first time in January, and I loved it. That is If There's No Tomorrow by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I read a lot of Jennifer L. Armentrout books this year. She was in Meet Cute, and I read this. The next book I'm about to share after this is also by her, so a lot by her this month. But I read this for the first time this month. It came out at the end of last year, or I think it was in May. Sometime last year. And I love this book. And it's a book I can't really talk about without spoiling it, but I would highly recommend it. To give you the gist of it, it's about this girl who is really excited for her future. This book takes place, the beginning of it takes place during the summer before she's about to start her senior year of high school, so a lot of exciting things are about to start happening. She's also in love with her best friend, has been in love with him for a long time, and then something happens that changes everything. And she makes one decision that was a complete mistake, and now she's living with the consequences and the guilt that comes from that, and she's finding it hard to move on and be happy about all these things that she was so excited for now that this has happened. And I know I'm being very vague, but this is a book you really should go into with only knowing just that much about it. It'll make it that much more enjoyable. And I loved it so much. How it handled the theme of grief and moving on and all of that was so realistic. I just felt like this book was so real and I really connected to it. I loved all the characters and I could not recommend it enough. I feel like this book is so underrated. More people need to know about it. I think it's so important, especially to young people. I feel like this is just such an important, good read that young people need to read. The themes it handles are just handled so well, and I just love it so much. It has quickly made it to one of my favorite books of all time. And I was afraid that it wouldn't live up to The Problem with Forever, which is my favorite book of all time, also by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So I went into this like kind of nervous that I would be disappointed because I felt like it wouldn't live up to that book, but I was totally wrong. It definitely lived up to how much I love The Problem with Forever. It's on par with how much I love The Problem with Forever. I just love Jennifer's books so much, and I can't wait to read more books by her. I just love them. And I've only read her YA contemporary, but they were amazing. So I highly recommend this. Definitely give it a read if you haven't yet. Okay, so my favorite book of the month was a reread, and it is another Jennifer L. Armentrout book that I talk about so much, and that is The Problem with Forever by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I just felt the desire to reread this again because it's my favorite book of all time, and it was actually the first book I read this year, so it was a good book to start off the year with. I listened to this on audiobook, which I really enjoyed the audiobook. I think it was so well done, and I just fell in love with this story all over again. I just love it so much. I always fangirl over it. It's so great. It made me cry all over again and just made me smile, and it is just the best thing ever. For those of you who are new to this channel and have not heard about this book before from me, because I talk about it a lot, it is about this girl named Mallory, and she is a foster kid, and she's been living with this couple who have been abusing her and have just been horrible to her. She's also living there with this boy named Ryder, and he has always been her protector. He's been protecting her from this abuse for years. But then Mallory gets transferred to another home after all this stuff comes to light, how she's been abused by these foster parents. And in the process, she is split from Ryder. She doesn't ever see him again. But then she decides to start her senior year of high school at a public school because she had been homeschooled before, but now she's like finally ready to go to actual school. And there she meets Ryder. She meets him in her speech class, and they get to know each other again, and they fall in love throughout this book. It is just so great. Definitely, of course, a 5 out of 5 stars. So, I felt like this was an unusually long wrap-up. So, I don't know how long this video is going to be, but I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you check out some of the 5-star books I've shown, because they are all amazing. And let me know in the comments what books you read this month, and whether you've loved them or hated them, because I would love to know. And if you like this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below for more bookish related videos and wrap-ups.